So in today's video, I would like to cover several things. I'm going to do a Canva tutorial of sorts and show my process of designing, I'm air quoting, but you can't see me, of designing book covers like I did in my video a few months ago called the Build Your Own Book Cover tag, which is really fun, and I'll link it below because I'm quite proud of it and I think people liked watching it. But I had a few people who said they would have liked to have seen the design process itself. I just kind of showed the covers in that video and talked about my ideas and my inspiration, but I didn't actually show the process or how I did it. So today's video is kind of more of that, since people seemed like they wanted to see that. And it's also, and I'm talking a lot. I know I'm talking a lot, and I'm just moving my mouse around to make it seem like something's happening, but nothing's happening. I tricked you. So I'm just gonna start designing my first book cover, which is A Wrinkle in Time. And I should mention that this is also kind of a wrap up. I wanted to talk about a few books that I've read recently, but I didn't want to do it in the same format that I did, in all my other videos. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just wanted to try something a little more visually engaging, and I'm, as you can tell, quite rambly. If you've never used Canva, then this is going to be a fun video. If you have used Canva, then you can probably use it better than I can. We're not here to compete, so don't try to win this battle, because you probably already did. But Canva is a useful website that I use for, among other things, I use it for work, I use it for different social media posts. It's helpful for formatting pictures for things like Twitter and Facebook, because they have pretty strict pixel restrictions. I don't know how I said that without getting my tongue twisted. And I also use it for things like designing fake book covers like I did in that video that I mentioned earlier. So today I wanted to do a few book covers. I'm not going to be able to do as many as I did in that other video, which I think was 5, because it does take a while, and since I'm actually showing the process, I don't want to make a video that's like hours long. So I'm just going to do 2 books, and this is also a wrap-up of sorts. You're getting so many things wrapped up into one little video, but this is my, let's call it, September wrap-up, because these are 2 books that I read recently. I read them both last month, and I did read quite a few more. I might talk about them someday, but I just wanted to focus on these 2 books for now. So the first book that we're going to talk about is A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline. Can't say her last name, never have been able to do that. When I read this book, I was basically surprised by how poorly represented I thought the book was by the book cover, which is a pretty common thing for me to believe. But I wanted to make a cover that pulls more from the science fiction elements of A Wrinkle in Time, because it's a very science-heavy book. I don't know if it's hard science or if it's just science that the author made up, but it seems pretty true, or it seems like it could be true, so I wanted to pay homage to the science fiction aspects of the book as opposed to the flying winged horse angels that you often see on covers, because I think they look weird. So this is a picture that I just pulled from another website that's called unsplash.com. It's a great resource to get free photos, among other things. Why did I say that? It just has free photos, but it has a lot of free photos. So this is just an image that I pulled off of their website. Not really going to edit it because I already like it. Actually, I might change the filter. So I'm not really describing what I'm doing. I'm just kind of showing you what I'm doing, but I like to just kind of play around in these filters until I get one that I like. And I think I like that because it just makes it pop a little more. And then I just go up here and I'm going to start playing with the fonts. So like I did in my last video, I tried to use 1 font per book cover and keep it pretty consistent that way. So for this one, I've decided to use Collective, or Collectif, I guess. And I wanted to do sort of a modern / retro feel, because it is an older book, but it also has that timeless sense, which is funny because it's called A Wrinkle in Time, get it? So A Wrinkle of Time is clearly not the title. I'm having trouble talking and typing. Can't do 2 things at once. A Wrinkle in Time. So we've got our title. I left justified it just because I like how that looks, and then I'm going to change the color. This is going to be a fun process, which I will show you in a bit. But basically, I've already mocked up this cover. I didn't want to do this blind because clearly I've been having trouble talking and also designing. So I wanted to run through the process first, do a dry run just to see how it would look, and I'm kind of redesigning it again. I don't know why I did that. So I want to change the line height, and you can go into spacing and do that, and that's what I'm doing. I'm really good at describing things. So we've got that orange. I love the contrast of orange and blue. I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but orange to me instantly feels retro. I mentioned I wanted to keep this like retro feel, and I love how it plays against blue. So we're doing orange, and then I also wanted to kind of play with the concept of time, because obviously this is a book about time. So we're doing that with the font, or we're going to try to mimic that with the font. And I wanted to give the viewer a sense of the passage of time without actually showing anything like a clock or whatever, because I think that's kind of obvious, so to speak. So we're going to do that by just playing with the word time here, and if I can click on the right thing, there we go. And I'm going to try to show it kind of like dropping down and give a sense of the passage of time. Does any of that make sense? I don't know if it does. Maybe I'll just edit out my voice because it's not really adding much, is it, to what you're watching? So this basically is like any other editing program. I don't know if you've used like Microsoft Word or, you know, PowerPoint, but basically things operate the same way, and you can just arrange things so that they go to the front or they get sent to the back. And for things like font, that's pretty crucial because I do a lot of fake drop shadows on my book covers. And so, like you're going to see on the next cover, it's going to get pretty complicated in terms of the order of fonts and the order of colors because there's just a lot going on. But this cover overall is pretty simple. I'm just going to keep darkening the color and fading towards black because I like that. I didn't realize it was going to be so brown, but that's okay. So I just wanted to add one more down here. We'll move that one up a teensy bit if I can, and I can't. I'm just going to give up. All right, moving that up, moving this up, and putting that, I guess, right there. And we'll just make that full black. So do you get the sense of time kind of dripping down the page or dripping down the cover? I don't know. It's a metaphor. Is it a metaphor? It's symbolic. We'll just keep it at that. So in addition to that, I wanted to introduce another element of design. So I'm making these lines. Unfortunately, I don't know how to make a thin line, so this is how I make lines in Canva. And I'm going to do, oh, I kind of like that. That's cool. It's different than I did the first time, but I like that. So change the color of that to white, and I'm going to copy this, and I kind of wanted to make it look like clock hands, if you get that sense. Do you get that sense? Like I said, it's abstract, but these are meant to illustrate clock hands. And then I wanted to do one more. I have a really hard time clicking on the proper thing, clearly. Wanted to do one more that's just kind of like, I don't know, random. This does not look like the original one that I did, but it's still pretty cool. So we got that, and now I want to do the author's name. That's really the last thing that I have to do on the cover. So what's her name? Can't pronounce it, but here we go. Madeline. Make that white, and I guess I'll keep the same font as the title. Make that smaller. And then this is where it gets a little tricky because I want a specific, actually that looks fine. I just wanted it to look a little like the letters are coming out of the lines, if that makes sense. Or you know how it kind of seems fractured sometimes on book covers, like pieces of a mirror and the letters are coming out of them. I wanted to give it sort of that effect and kind of put them on different lines here. So maybe I'll do that. Oh, that looks pretty cool. Okay. Madeline, and then insert last name here. Blah. Put that down there. And I don't love it. So it kind of looks like it's coming out of the lines, or it's fading through time or fading through dimensions. as part of the lines. Am I making any sense here? Probably not. I actually don't like that at all, so we're going to move that over there. There we go. That makes more sense to me. I'm not in love with this, but I like the balance of the text of the title being there and the author's name being there. It just seems more balanced to me. So we'll call this the cover. Oh, the one last thing I wanted to do was just really anal here, but I wanted to try to make this parallel to that weird comet streaking across the sky, just for consistency. So it kind of echoes that, and it has a few different symbolic meanings, I guess, to the viewer. This is the first cover. It's done. Now I should probably talk about what I thought about the book. But overall, I did not like this book. I read it because I have a few friends who love it, and I know it's a classic. It's a children's classic, and I always try to read children's classics whenever I can, because I think classics are classics for a reason. It felt kind of empty to me, and it felt, at the same time, it felt overly emotional. I did have a few pretty big problems with it. I didn't like the main character at all. I forget her name, but she was the quintessential precocious young character, and I just have no time for people who are precocious because it drives me insane, especially in fiction. She was also kind of a brat to her family and to a lot of the characters that she met in the book, and the main point of the book is that she learned to love her brother and to, I guess, tell him that she loved him more often, and that was my main takeaway anyways. And I just didn't really think that it added a lot to the book to have her being so bratty and then, to have a complete turnaround by the end of the book. I thought there were some really cool concepts in the book. It reminded me of The Phantom Tollbooth and I guess a lot of other children's books that came out around that same time. But it has this feeling of a character who's visiting a bunch of different worlds, and she meets a lot of eccentric people on each world, and they're all meant to teach the main character something, which I guess is kind of the point of most children's books. But for me, it felt very formulaic, and the ending was very rushed, and I just didn't really love it a whole lot, and I don't know why, but those are my thoughts. It's kind of ironic that I picked two books to talk about that I didn't really like, but I'm just being honest with you guys. The next book that I wanted to design is called The Goblins of Bellwater by Molly Ringel. This is a book about some characters who live in the Pacific Northwest. I think they live in Portland or Seattle. And in this forest near the town where they live, there is a group of goblins who pretty much like to steal people and turn them into goblins / eat them periodically throughout history. So there's one character who is tasked with keeping these goblins under control, and he does this by bringing them tribute in the form of gold, which they do weird stuff with. But basically, he is imprisoned in this town, and if he ever leaves, the goblins will go insane and pretty much, eat everyone or whatever. He doesn't really know what, but he doesn't want to find out either. So incidentally, there are some other characters who get into mischief playing around in the woods, and they get into trouble, and one of them comes under the control of the goblins, and she has this spell placed on her where she can't speak, and the goblins did something to her, but she's not able to tell anyone, including her sister and her closest friends. So there's a mystery among the other characters of finding out what happened to her, and in the process, there's a lot of romance that ensues, and there's a lot of finding out more about the goblins and more about the magical folklore of this area where they live. I need to pause talking about the book because there are some fonts that I need to find in here, and I can't quite remember which ones I used. I think that was one. Yeah, this is one. Okay. So this cover, I'm doing something a little different. I wanted to try 2 fonts in the title. I think that has a more engaging, eye-catching quality. I love how I sound like I know what I'm talking about. That's the trick here. I also like this buttery yellow. I just do. I'm really into that right now. I don't know why. I'm into butter. So here is the buttery yellow T, and then I'm going to copy that because I wanted to do the rest of the capital letters in the title in that same font. So let's see, Goblins. Of is not capitalized, so I don't need that. The Goblins of Bellwater. B can go there. And I'm going to copy this again. And this is how you create drop shadows in Canva, basically a cheat. and you clone the letter, and you put that behind, and then you arrange it. So the only trouble I have with this cover is that it's kind of hard for the words to stand out because there's a lot happening. So I think I need to lighten this up, possibly. Lighten things up in here. Does that help, or does it make it worse? I think that works better. So we're going to do that, and I'm going to finish up the letters here. So I didn't like this book. I guess I should mention that. I maybe already did, but I didn't like this book because I felt like it was misrepresented, and I just really wish that I had known certain things going into it. Like, I really thought there would be this dark quality to the book, like this darkness that the goblins lent, because goblins are murderous creatures, as everyone knows, and they're represented that way here, but they're also kind of watered down, and they don't actually do a lot of visible harm to humans. Not that I wish harm on characters, but at the same time, I kind of do, you know? I felt like I was promised one thing, so I wanted to see these characters get into some trouble. And I didn't really feel like that happened here. So, I don't love this font, but I'm going to use it. Alright, so we have the... And I'm going to do a drop shadow for this as well. But more about the book, I thought that the book was very romance heavy. And if you've seen the original cover, and I'll insert it here just so you guys can see it, but if you've seen the original cover, there's nothing to hint at that this book is going to be basically entirely about two relationships that form the bulk of this book. And that's okay. Like, you know, romance is fine, and I'm not saying that I never want to read a book about romance, but for me it's pretty specific timing in terms of like when I want to read a book like that. And I just wasn't in the mood for that, and it felt like a lot of the focus was on the characters and their romance as opposed to on the goblins, which are, you know, about to kill everyone. So in a book about goblins, especially ones that are able to, you know, murder everyone and eat everyone, I want to hear more about them and less about the goo-goo eyes that everyone's making at each other, because I'm just not a romantic in that way. And I know I sound like a fuddy-duddy, but like, come on. You know what I mean? Sometimes you're just not in the mood for things like that. So I'm doing a cover that's pretty obvious to the viewer that it's about romance, because I feel like it just does the book better justice. I was reading a little bit about this in an article last week, but an interesting thing about book covers in the US is that a lot of times designers appeal to what they call the lowest common denominator, basically because the markets in the US for books are so spread out and they're so different demographically that people try to do simplistic covers because it's hard for people to get turned off by a cover when there's, you know, very little going on design-wise. And I totally understand that. And if you're looking at the original cover to this book, it's clear that that's what they're going for, because they didn't want to brand this book as specifically romance, which I totally get. But at the same time, I'm like, come on, guys. You're also turning people off if they go to your book and they figure out that they're not getting what they thought they were getting. That's also a turnoff. So I think it's a balance between doing the book and doing the topics of the book justice, and also having fun design-wise and trying to go for something a little more unique and eye-catching. Like I said, I have no idea what I'm talking about, but I like to sound like I do. So I like the yellow in contrast with the greens and whatever else is going on here. I might try to make this a little more purplish for reasons that we'll get into. If I can do that, that's too... I can't do it. Yeah, we'll go with that. That looks fine. So this cover, we're kind of going with a retro thing. I think this color harkens back to the 60s, the 50s. I don't know. I feel like there were appliances back then that were a similar color to that. So we have this, and then we're also going to bring this magic dust in because I wanted to illustrate the magic that surrounds these characters. What I really wanted to do here originally was to try to find like a goblin and just have him peeking out from behind a tree here. But that's unfortunately a little too advanced for what I'm able to do in Canva. So instead you get these magic sparkles, which are just as fun, don't get me wrong. but they're not equivalent to a goblin peeking out from behind a tree. So we've got these spirals of magic coming up behind the characters and around the characters, and they're just engulfed in all the crazy stuff that's happening in this town where they live. And then I'm just gonna arrange that behind. See what I mean? There's a lot going on here. All right. Oh, that's cute. There's a few that are in front of the letters, so it's got this like 3D effect. So fun. I'm not really doing this cover to be tongue-in-cheek. I know that a lot of people have problems with human beings being on the cover, but for this I actually think it's appropriate. A lot of romance, as we all know, has two people kissing on it because that's the main focal point of romance. So I'm rebranding this book as romance, fantasy romance, as you can see from the magic sparkles. So this is the new cover, and it might be a little hard to read these last few letters, but I think overall it's pretty fine. So to summarize, The Goblins of Bellwater is a book that I read last month that I did not like, and I found making this cover and talking about the book at the same time to be pretty distracting, so I don't know if I said that much about it substantially. But I didn't like it because I didn't like the characters, and I felt like the book was misrepresented. And here's the other book cover that we started with. So I think I mentioned that my inspiration for this was A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. This cover, on the other hand, doesn't really have inspiration. It's just something that I was looking for, I guess. I just searched couples kissing in the woods, and this is what popped up. So pretty straightforward. So there you go. That's my short and quick, painless, hopefully, tutorial to making a book cover in Canva. If you haven't used Canva before, I really encourage everyone to try it out. It's completely free. There is an upgraded version, but I've never used it in my life, so you don't really need to. But if you've got any projects going on, like school projects or side projects, just anything, it's really helpful for a variety of tools and tricks, and I'm not a spokesperson for this at all, but I've just been using it for years. So that's it for today's video. I guess it wasn't as long as I thought it was going to be. I might have been able to do another cover, but I'm tired. But I do have fun doing things like this because I have a huge passion for books, and I really think that it's important to have attractive book covers because attractive book covers sell books. So I do like this process, and I'm always interested to learn more about what goes into designing book covers. I think I also mentioned that this is kind of my informal wrap-up for the month. I'm not going to do another wrap-up for maybe a few weeks at least, because I just don't really feel like doing a standard wrap-up. Not that I don't enjoy doing it, but I just haven't been able to upload that many other videos, so I don't want every video in my feed to be like a wrap-up video, because I know that gets boring for you guys. So this is my attempt to put a little bit more of a spin on that and make it more interesting to watch. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I would love to do another video like this in the future and maybe do a few other book covers for you guys, maybe show a few different design-ish projects. Like I said, I'm not trained in design or anything. I don't know how to use any of the professional, air quotes, programs. This is kind of showing how I cheat and get around those things and get around not knowing how to do design stuff. In the comment section below, let me know what you guys have been reading lately. I've really been looking for good recommendations these past few weeks. I've been in a bit of a rut, not like a total rut, but I do feel like I haven't learned about a whole lot of new books lately, so I would like to hear what you guys are reading just to get some ideas and get those creative juices flowing. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. It means a lot to me. If you want to see more videos like this in the future, either give a thumbs up or leave me a comment in the comment section below. That's going to be it for today. I hope you guys have a great week, and I will talk to you all later. You can't see me, but I'm waving, so just imagine me waving goodbye, because I'm doing it.